So let's make the square. I have my yarn here, so it's the Color Theory worsted weight, which it's kind of on the light side, I would say. Have 4mm hook. I have my instructions here. So let's start from the beginning. Start with a magic circle. So a lot of instructions will show kind of like that. After making so many squares, I'm just using my finger, and I prefer to have a small tail, because once you pull it, it will give you just enough yarn to secure that. And I also like to have a double circle. I think it makes it more secure. If I do a single loop, it tends to open up when you wear your garment. And in the past, I used to just take a tapestry needle and have like a couple of back stitches to secure it. So the double loop, I'm just like wrapping it around my finger twice, taking it off. So I have these two circles. This is my tail, and it's small. And of course, you could do a longer tail if that makes it easier, or you could wrap it around your hand if that's easier. So I need to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then I need to work 2 incomplete DC, and that will be my first cluster. So I am doing the yarn over, inserting my hook in the middle of these both loops, and then another yarn over, completing my DC. So I have chain 3 and then 2 incomplete DCs, and then I'm just going to pull the yarn through all of the stitches. This is my first cluster. So then I have to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, then yarn over, and I'm going to work another cluster. So I'm completing a DC halfway, another double crochet, then halfway, and then another double crochet. Just completed halfway. So now I have 4 loops on my hook, and I'm completing it as a cluster. So chain 3, 1 more cluster. So 1, 2, 3, and finishing it as a cluster. Then chain 3, 1, 2, 3, complete. So I have 4 clusters, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this hole right here is pretty big, so I'm going to tighten it up just a little bit. And then so when I pull on this, only one of the loops tightened, the other one is still very loose. So I'm going to use my hook and kind of like pull on it just a little bit, and that will pull. So I'm pulling on this side from left to the right, kind of like this way, and that transfers the yarn from this first loop to the second loop. And now I'm pulling on the end, and both of the loops became smaller. But I don't want it too tight quite yet, because I still have to make 4 clusters. So chain 3 and another cluster, so half of my double crochet. Okay, so I have 4 loops on my hook. Then I'm going to do the yarn over and pull it through all of the stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and then 1 more cluster, So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 2 more clusters. So I'm going to kind of push all of these clusters to make more room. 1, 2, 3, and then like that. 1, 2. This yarn splits up a little bit, so I have to fix it. Okay, so I have 7 clusters, and there's 1 more. So I'm going to insert this 1, 2, and 3. And then finish the cluster. So now I'm just going to remove my hook from this loop, and I'm going to tighten this up. So this is the wrong side of it, this is the right side. So it goes like that. So this is my end, and I'm pulling it from the left to the right. Just pull it as tight as you can. So now it's closed, and I'll pull it again. Okay, now it's pretty secured and it's really tight. So I like to hide this tail in here and pull it. So from the middle, I'm putting it, I'm going to thread it to be up to the next row, and then incorporate the rest of this tail into my next round. And this way I don't have to weave in the ends at the end. Because if you're making 17 or 18 squares, it's a lot of ends to weave at the end. So it's really helped to just put, to spend just a little bit of extra effort in the beginning and have less to weave in later. So I'm basically trying to, so sometimes it helps to use a smaller hook. So I'm just going to switch to the size 3mm hook here. So I'm pulling up one of the loops on the wrong side of the fabric and just kind of threading this through. Then one more. And that's it. So now I need to finish my round. So I still have to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And I need to put a slip stitch into this stitch here, because that was the chain 3 and this was the top of the cluster here. And I'm going to do it, I'm going to use 2 loops here, just like that. So normally with granny squares you have more dense fabric because it's all double crochets. In this specific pattern there are elements of lace because you have chain arches, and then so if you try to hide the tail, it's just going to be really visible. So I'm trying to incorporate it into my chain. So I'm using that. So I just completed chain 1, so I'm putting it up like that. And then I'm moving it this way, and I need to have a chain 1 and then another chain 3, so it's 4 chains. So I'm moving it, so it's here, I'm moving it up and then completing a chain. So now I have to make a single crochet in the middle of the 3 chain arch from this prior round here. So it's a single crochet, and then I will be keeping so I want to have this tail kind of in my round when I'm working it like that. So now I have to make chain 3. So it's 1, 2, 3, and then the next single crochet will be on top of this cluster. So I'm working it single crochet, and I also included my tail inside of this single crochet. So now another chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So my tail is hidden here. The chain will be slightly thicker than the rest of them, but the next round we will put the cluster on top of it and it's not going to be visible. So the next single crochet goes into in this arch, and then so for round 2 you're just making chain 3, single crochet on top of the cluster, and then round chain 3 and a single crochet inside of the arch, so until every top of the cluster and every arch is worked. So it's really easy to make a mistake here and skip one of those places, and so if you do that, your work may arch up kind of like in a dome shape, or later you will have just not enough stitches to form the square. So that would be a place to look. Did you have enough clusters? You would have not clusters, but the arches. You will have to have 16 arches at the end. Also, if it's helpful, you could use the marker and mark the beginning of the round, just so you it's more visual. And it may look like it's too many stitches at this point and it ruffles, but it really it will fix itself in the next round, because once you put the clusters, so like here I have all these clusters on top, everything goes outwards, and it will stop ruffling. So I have one more arch, 1, 2, 3, and this is the beginning of my round, so I have to make a slip stitch into the first chain to connect the round. So I completed the round 2. I just finished round 2, so I have 16 arches here of chain 3s, and the round 3 is 16 clusters placed inside of each of these arch. And to do that, I have to do so I'm going to do a slip stitch in one of these chains to bring myself to the top of the arch. Then I'm going to work chain 2 and then start my cluster, which is a double crochet, incompleted, another incomplete double crochet, and then finish the cluster. So this is my cluster. I wanted to point something out. So normally when you do work the clusters, or when you have a double crochet, it's conventional to have chain 3 and then you work your double crochet. So with this specific yarn, I found it was better for me to have chain 2, and then so when I'm working the cluster, if I work chain 3 and then the double crochet like that, so this was sticking out too much, and it was just kind of at the end I didn't like it that much, so I started working chain 2s, and it just a better result for me. It was really visible and it was kind of sticking out on each round, and I just didn't like the result. So let's go back to our first cluster. So then I'm going to do chain 2, another cluster, another chain 2, and another cluster in the next arch, and just work that all around and connect it in a row, connect it in a round with the slip stitch. 1, 2, 3. So then 1, 2, another cluster. The yarn splits up a little bit. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It's important to double check how many clusters you have, because if you completed less chains in row, less arches in row 2, it won't make it a full square at the end when you work in the round 4. Okay, so now I have to work chain 2 and connect the slip stitch, join around with the slip stitch. So this is the top of the cluster. I like to go inside of this chain, but picking up the back loop here as well, so that you're picking up 2 loops. This will prevent it from stretching too much. So I'm inserting it here, working my slip stitch. So I joined it in a round, and this is my round 3. Now for round 4, I'm going to make the corners and turn it into a square. It's useful to have little markers placed in a cluster where the corners will be worked. So it's the 1st, 5th marker, 9th, and 13th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I'm not placing it all the way to the top. I'm just marking that so it's visible for me, and I could still work that stitch. So you have 3 clusters in between the clusters with the marker, so it's evenly spaced. So to work the first corner, I will work chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Then it's 2 DCs in the same stitch as the chain 3. So we have this hole here, and for the first stitch, for the first corner, I like to incorporate this loop here as well. I just think it kind of covers up some of the hole here for the corner. So this is chain 3, 2 DCs, and that's my first corner. So then the pattern calls to skip 2 and work an HDC in next 2 stitches. So I'm skipping this and this. So this is the chain 2 arch between my clusters, and I'm placing my HDC on top of this cluster, so it's a 3rd stitch, and it's HDC, half double crochet in next 2 stitches. So there's one that will go here, then a single crochet in next 3 stitches. So it's 1, 2, 3. So this the second chain from this chain to space. Okay, it's a single crochet. So this chain to space, so I have 2 stitches here, then a single crochet in a cluster and another single crochet in this chain to space. So then I have HDC in next 2 stitches. So HDC goes in this chain to space and then in this cluster. So then I'm skipping 2 stitches and I'm placing, I will be working a corner, which will be 3DC, chain 2, and 3DC, and everything worked in this one cluster, on top of this cluster. So it's DC, 1, 2, and 3. Then I'm working chain 2, 1 and 2, and then another 3 DCs in the same stitch. And so this is my corner here. So then the same as we worked here, we will be skipping 2 stitches and then working a half double crochet in this cluster here, and then another half double crochet in the next stitch, and then there will be 3 single crochets, so single crochet in next 3 stitches. So single crochet 1, 2, and then 3. So then a half double crochet, another half double crochet. So then I'm working this cluster to create another corner. So it's 3 DCs in the top of this cluster. So 1, 2, okay, so 1 DC, 2 DCs, 3 DCs, chain 2, and then double crochet, another double crochet, and a third double crochet. So then for this side, we are working the same number of stitches as we worked for these 2 sides. So skip 2 and work a half double crochet in a 3rd stitch and then in a 4th stitch. Then single crochet in next 3 stitches. So I have a single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and then I have to work a half double crochet in this chain 2 loop and also on top of this cluster. A half double crochet, and then I'm working a corner in the next cluster with a marker. So it's 1, 2, 3. So now there's just one side left. So I have chain 2, 3 DCs to complete the corner. 1, 2, 3. Then skip 2, work a half double crochet, another half double crochet, and then single crochet, single crochet, single crochet, and then half double crochet in next 2 stitches. So we repeated this section here 3 times, so it's 1, 2, and 3. Then we would skip 2 and work 3 DCs in this corner right here. So we need to complete this part of the corner here. So it's the DC in the same stitch where the first chain was placed, the first chain 3. So here's our chain, our corner. Now chain 2, and we're going to place a slip stitch in the 3rd chain here to join the round. And so that's our motif. We completed 1 square.